So, welcome to the Chaos Cast, and we're always trying to inform you about news that's going on and disaster preparedness. And today, we want to talk about preparing your children. When we were kids, they always told us stranger danger, and then here recently they said don't always yell when strangers come to you because you may hurt somebody's feelings. That was something they were teaching in one of the schools when it pertained to pedophiles, what they like to call nowadays minor attractive people. Many of you may have heard this interview with this lady that was talking about they can't help that they are attracted. Why should we judge someone that is attracted to children and they can't help that they are attracted to minors and they didn't ask to be attracted to minors. Again, they're trying to use the inclusion route to make a case for pedophilia. Now, there was a certain politician whose emails were released, and Oni Tedes. We'll say it like that. That way, I don't hit no algorithm or search over, no keywords. But his emails were released, and this was made out to be a very large hoax. That this Pizzagate was, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Pizzagate was actually it was just a made up thing. It's not real. They're just persecuting this poor pizza joint owner. And then a lot of information started coming out about texts that he had, stuff he had on Instagram, certain hashtags that he had on Instagram, certain artwork he had in his home. And it was just very, very vile information that was coming out about the situation that our own, certain government officials might be involved in. And then we had the Epstein debacle, and supposedly he committed suicide. We had Ghislaine Maxwell, and her the whole this whole information disclosure that didn't happen with her. That they closed it of a list of certain people that had participated in all of this child trafficking and pedophilia. This whole pedophilia ring that Epstein was involved in, the Lolita Express airplane and the flight logs of that. And there were a lot of politicians and Hollywood stars that were involved in this. But the whole thing was made out to be a conspiracy theory. There's not this major pedophile network. It doesn't involve any of our Hollywood elite. It doesn't involve any of our political elite. Maybe it didn't. But there are terrible atrocities being perpetrated upon children. And I refuse to be part of that normalization of the minor attractive people's situation that they're trying to reclassify pedophiles. It's just another sexual class. No, we don't need to make that normal. We don't need to make that okay. But our children are facing, they have so many great advantages in this new age we have, but they are facing so many new dangers. We've seen the children that have been kidnapped. We've seen to catch a predator, where they've set these predators up that were using the internet to talk to these people. I about jumped out of my skin one day when my son was playing a video game, or one of them downloaded games on his phone. He said, "These people love me." And there were just random people on this. So I made him exit out of that live play that he was doing. He is not allowed to do that. We have to monitor everything that our children do online to make sure. But there's so many trappings and there's so many predators out there. And we have these vast networks of human trafficking going on. And they feed into this story that has been reported here recently about Instagram. How Instagram's algorithms have connected a vast network of pedophiles seeking child pornography, according to researchers. Meta has apparently established a task force to combat this problem, whatever they're doing. I'm not sure, but it was a problem for a while. Variety, this is a report coming from Variety by Todd Spangler. Now, the New York Post reported on this. There's a number of mainstream media outlets that are reporting on this, and this is not a hoax. This is not some crazy thing. This is real. There are people on mainstream networks like this. Now, I heard recently of a story on TikTok where they had set these accounts were labeled private accounts. They had like a little picture of a child. They wouldn't have. They might have a video posted to the people that were following them, but again, it was pedophiles using these networks to sell pornography. There's also been allegations of different online sellers having a couch for sale, a picture of a couch for sale, and it being $20,000, and then it'll have, what the basically it was a child for sale. We've all seen the instances where Ashton Kutcher has been trying to fight this online, and he had his own algorithm being developed to search these people. And I believe that the FBI was going to him to try and use his network to try and search for this kid that they could not find. And he's talking about this, with tears in his eyes on YouTube. And he's dealing with trolls that are saying, that, whatever they're saying, they're just saying crazy stuff the trolls say. And it really triggered him. But you see a lot in this. I've interviewed on this show in its early days when it was just still on Clapper, a young woman that went by the tag there, Savage Siggy 6. Now, she had been in child trafficking. She had been in human trafficking. And she began to explain to me how vast that network is, that there's actually a skin trade amongst the cartel that works in South America, Latin America, Mexico, and certain entities in the U.S. that trade white children for brown children. But yes, human trafficking is real. There are children that are suffering from this, and it goes on up into their adult lives if they are kept alive that long. There is a lot of children that do not make it out of this situation because of the abuse. But yeah, they're actually sold. You imagine being sold? We talk about how terrible slavery was that America participated in with African Americans, which actually we found out recently we have African American heritage through a DNA test in our family. And so you imagine being that person forced against your will to work. Imagine being that person forced against your will toward, sex, and you're a child. And that's what we're looking at here. This whole story. I'll try to remember post the link to this story at Variety. But I mean, you can Google it too if you want to. But I'm going to read you a little bit of it. It says, Instagram's recommendation algorithms have enabled a vast network of pedophiles seeking illegal underage sexual content and activity, according to a Wall Street Journal expose. In a 2,800 word article published Wednesday, the journal said it conducted an investigation into child pornography on Meta-owned Instagram in collaboration with researchers at Stanford and the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Pedophiles have long used the internet, but unlike the forums and file transfer services that cater to people who have interest in illicit content, Instagram doesn't merely host these activities, its algorithms promote them, the journal reported. Instagram connects pedophiles and guides them to content sellers via recommendation systems that excel at linking those who share niche interests. A Meta spokesperson said the company is continuously exploring ways to actively defend against this behavior. And we set up an internal task force to investigate these claims and immediately address them. Meta acknowledged that the company, in some cases, received reports of child sexual abuse and failed to act on them, citing a software error that prevented them from being processed, which Meta has said has since been fixed, as they say. In addition, we provided updated guidance to our content reviewers to more easily identify and remove predatory accounts, the Meta rep said. Child exploitation is a horrific crime. We work aggressively to fight it on and off our platforms and to support law enforcement in its efforts to arrest and prosecute the criminals behind it, the rep said in a statement. Predators constantly change their tactics in their pursuit to harm children, and that's why we have strict policies and technology to prevent them from finding or interacting with teens on our apps and hire specialist teams who focus on understanding their evolving behaviors so we can eliminate abusive networks. Okay, so they're talking about how they have technology in place to prevent it, but yet they had a software error. So I want to ask this. We've seen this happen many times where, in politics, where certain factions of certain political parties were able to limit access or increase access for certain people that they affiliate with. Is it possible that they have, undercover, in the closet pedophiles that are working for them that may have perpetrated that software error and may perpetrate even more no matter how many times that they fix this? So you need to be very mindful of what your children are doing. You need to know how to check behind them. They have access to more in their hand than we had as children, with a complete library, a computer. I mean, it's so much easier for children to find things, and these people are constantly looking to find them. If you're letting your child get on these platforms, you need to know. You need to check their messages. You need to check, do back checks on what they've been viewing and what they have been looking at. One of the things that is very telling. Just look on your child's search page. Recently, when you had the congressmen that were saying they were trying to ban TikTok, and they were saying, well, basically all I see when I go on TikTok is a bunch of young girls dancing. And they actually said that on television, and it shows their ignorance to how algorithms work. Obviously, they were watching those, and it was feeding them more of what they were viewing. Now, again, sometimes when you go on these, there may be they're wanting to show you the popular viewed videos, and because the young men and women have been watching these videos, they automatically come to your For You page. But that was very telling of what those people were watching and looking at when they did get on TikTok. And that was pretty wild. Tells you a lot about our government officials. Again, they are men. Some of them are women, and they do have, they are humans. So there will be instances of that. But they ain't no excuse. I can't say much for it. Lord, just touch them and help them. I'm trying to be good, but man, that was just the craziest thing I ever heard. You don't go. You and I knew exactly what was happening, but they had no clue because they have no clue about technology. I seen a friend make a TikTok video about it, and it just dawned on me. I was like, they really said that on television. They admitted what they were looking at. But anyways, that just tells you a lot about the ignorance of the people that are leading us when it comes to technology. And two, you need to look at it. We're constantly becoming more and more ignorant every day when we do not progress. Because I talked to some gentlemen that are, bosses and leaders at certain jobs. They didn't know what a podcast was. So that does tell you, you need to stay fresh on this. You need to know what the children are doing because you need to be monitoring it. And you don't want to rely on a system. Like we have a certain system that we have that, that tells us our children's location and whatnot. But, and also it tells us what they're looking at. We can view what they're viewing. But you don't want to just be relying on that because there's always back doors that children can find when they go to talk to each other. And just like they all knowed about that one guy in town at that gas station that would sell cigarettes to minors and let them buy porno magazines. Yeah, everybody knew about that. We all knew about the guy that would let you buy that because he didn't care. He just wanted the money. Didn't care what he's doing to the kids in the community. Yeah, he'd sell them videos. He'd sell them magazines. He'd sell them cigarettes. He'd sell them beer. Yeah, and then they all of a sudden stopped when some teenagers got in a wreck from drunk driving because everybody knew where they got the beer. But yeah, kids are going to find a way. You are constantly needing to go in to their phones, check what they're doing. running certain algorithms and certain programs to find what your kids are doing. And if you can't trust them, I would say they don't need a phone because there's so much they can get into. But this opens up the door. They were talking about how insane that would be, and you're talking about older people that think everybody's stupid, and we don't know what's really happening around us. Now, are all the politicians pedophiles? I can't say that. I do believe a vast majority of them are corrupt, and I wouldn't put it past them. Are all of Hollywood elites dirty pedophiles that eat at one certain pizza place? I don't know. I don't know for sure. But what I do know is there is a vast corruption, and there's also a highly different moral compass in Hollywood and our the Hollywood elite than what the normal person has. And it's not the first instance of this in history, because you look at the Roman Empire, and there were instances where people were going to parties towards the end of the Roman Empire. The nobility were going to parties and being given the use of children for sexual pleasure. And you can't tell me that the normal, average, everyday citizen knew about what was happening. So this has happened. There has always been some type of vulgar corruption the larger a society gets. So there is a possibility. So never write that out, and always watch what your children are doing. I mean, catfishing. Most people didn't know what that was until they started watching Neve Schulman's his original documentary of his own catfishing incident, and then they began to watch him as he went and uncovered others that were catfishing. Catfishing, all types of demographics and scenarios he found in that show. It may still be going. I haven't watched it in a while, but you need to be very mindful. This vast pedophile network was literally, they were recruiting more pedophiles by the day until this was exposed, and Instagram, Meta itself had to start doing the work and putting the boots on the ground to stop this. Will they find a way around it? Yes, they'll find a way around it. There are all there's been, I've had to test out different live streaming apps since I started working on influencing and podcasting, and there's always some new app popping up that that you can use live stream, and you'll make a certain amount of money off the people that watch your stream. There's tons of them. I've had to learn just stay to certain ones that I know I can be fairly safe in and not have exposure to just terrible people. But when you go in, you start reading the comments, you start reading reviews, you start realizing these people have already had issues, that the FBI has already had to investigate these people for supposed minors that were on screen, young girls that were exposing themselves, young men that were exposing themselves to get views, to get money. And, you have to be careful, and kids have access to these things. If you just turn them loose with a device, that's wild. You don't need to do that. And there are people that are looking for them, and they will use these these different sites. There's instances where they've hacked websites. They've hacked forums. They use the dark web. It's almost impossible nowadays to keep your children from this exposure. This is why you need to. You need to watch like a hawk. The government recently, you had the tweet from the Biden administration, because people are aggravated when our children are being drawn into the sexual transition community with tuckable onesies or tuckable clothes. Target put out, a child does not need to be exposed to sexuality in any way, form. Their gender doesn't need to be questioned. Children are impressionable. That's why children don't vote, because they can be coerced by adults because they don't know anything. They're learning. They're learning who they are. They're learning. They should not be allowed. There should be an age limit on sexual transition, just like there is on alcohol and firearms, because any of these could cause a lot, or could end in a life-changing event that ended up having negative effects. and people became very angry because they were doing this. Well, it really came to a head during Pride Month, and we're seeing a significant amount of the homosexual community and the female rights community come out against this because of how it's infringing on their communities and rights. A lot of homosexuals have fought to have certain rights, and they can see the anger in people, the parents, that's being caused by these people that are trying to over sexualize children, and then the way that these people are trying to push themselves into women's sports and causing an uneven balance in the competition. There's danger, and people are starting to get angry, but it's mainly coming to a head when people are trying to sexualize the children. And so during Pride Month, this was made evident from everybody when schools started trying to celebrate it, and get kids to wear their rainbow flags and clothes. People became angry. Teachers were reprimanded, and then they were called hate-filled extremists. No, you had leftists too that were tired of it too, or it wouldn't be this big. These protests wouldn't be this big for Target. These moms don't like their children being sexualized. That needs to be an adult decision that somebody makes. But we see the Biden administration come up, says LGBTQ community, we stand with you. These are our kids. And Elon Musk retweets this and says, you are the government. You don't have any kids, echoing the sentiment of all parents across the country. We've recently had the issues with Megan Fox where people are accusing her of pushing her children for social gain to dress like women, because when they're with their father, they dress like normal boys, but when they're with her, they dress like dress in dresses and dress like girls. And there are reported incidents where the boys were crying and saying they didn't want to wear the dress. Your children should not be sexualized. I have a friend. We call him Info Savage. That's one of his tags, and he's part of a group of the LGBTQ community, the Pride community, that is fighting against this. He's going into the school board meetings where they're trying to push sexualized material and content and education towards the children, and he's going in to help the parents fight this from being taken, this right to teach their children away from them, because there are people trying to pass laws where the teacher can let that kid transition at school against the parent's will. Um, that will progress almost guaranteedly into taking the child out of the home and the teacher helping that child make the decision to have transition surgeries they will one day regret. There's a documentary that came out recently of a young man, or no, it was a young woman that was basically coerced into changing her gender, and then later on realized that he, or if she went back to identifying as a she, did not felt like they had made a mistake and wished they could go back, but they had already had the surgery and could not transition back. They'd already had their genitalia removed. Their their ovaries, I believe, have been removed. But yeah, you see this sexualization of children, and it's just going to progressively get worse. And you, as a parent, need to be mindful of what is going on. You need to be mindful of the predators that are out there. Preparedness doesn't just go into what you're putting up for a disaster. There is a virtual disaster happening online continuously, and it is the sexualization of children and pedophilia. And as a parent, you need to be prepared for that. You need to watch what your children are consuming as far as content is. Now, the Clapper app actually has facial recognition technology. This is where I started creating content, but it has facial recognition technology to help keep children off the app, because it is a 18 plus app, and there are adult niches there. We have a BDSM community, we have the LGBT community, we have the OnlyFans community. These are the an LGBT community. There may be some children that are young people that are involved in that. But we don't allow anybody under 18 to be on there because of all the different communities that we have. And these need to be decisions that are made by these individuals when they are adults, not children, because again, children are easily coerced, easily, they're very impressionable. But anyways, we ourselves have to take up the slack of that technology to go through. And when we see children that are trying to go live to earn money, like they've done on TikTok, they think they can come over here, secretly start an account up, and go live and make money and take their followers from TikTok to here if they get in trouble. And we have to go through and we have to report these young children to keep them off there. To keep them off the app. And there's a number of people that are dedicated to keeping that from happening. But not every app's like that. And in fact, there's a lot of apps where people are helping these children to do these things that they want them to do that are just terrible. The threat's real, and you need to be prepared for it. If you have small children, you need to start being mindful and studying up on this and be prepared for what they're going to be able to have access to when you're not able to watch every second of every day, when they're at school, when you are asleep, when they sneak your phone, when they get on the computer when you're asleep. You can't always watch. I would say some of my best advice: have a well-trained dog that doesn't take treats from strangers. Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of child molestation and child sex acts happen because of people that are in the family and that they know. And that's why I say get a dog. A dog's loyal, and people will go and give in to some terrible things. A dog will tear anybody's neck out or tear anybody's arm off that tries to hurt that child, or tries to force themselves on that child. So yeah, I've got several large dogs that are very protective of the children. They're most of them are well trained, and so if something was to happen to my kids and I'm asleep, that dog's usually fairly alert. Recently had one that has come up missing. We don't know if she was, if she just died and was deceased, but we think she may have been basically dog napped, maybe sold on the dog market, local dog market. And it's a sad thing, but that dog was I hated that dog until the pandemic happened. And it's like that dog could sense our tension and the kids were home more. And nobody could come by our house without that dog just going into a rage, because those was our kids. And needless to say, I fell in love with that dog and have been very sad. But she was getting older, so she is a good dog. And good dogs have always stopped that. I remember being a child and we had Tramp, my grandmother's boxer lab mix, and my uncle hated that dog. Me and my brother loved that dog. We grew up with that dog, and then when my little cousins began to come of age and my grandmother died, that dog was left there, and they kept feeding it. My uncle didn't like it, but my Aunt Frances kept feeding it. And one day, somebody was coming up that driveway that didn't need to be there, and that dog got between them, and those people backed up and left. And my uncle started buying that dog the high dollar bag of dog food every day. And when that dog died, we buried it like a person, and everybody said something, had a little eulogy they said over it, and we all cried over that dog dying, because that was a good, had a little motherly instinct. That's what she had. She was a good dog. Kind of the same manner of that dog. And now we got another one right now. He's turning out to be, we got a couple that's turning out to be really good family dogs that are protective. I'm going to say it. Have video cameras up. Have family dogs. Have your own firearms, force multiplication, and be mindful of who your neighbors are and what your family's into, and just be, and train your kids from a young age to recognize predatory activity, to recognize predatory type people, things, and know things that shouldn't be done to them, that people shouldn't try to do to them. You got to be, it's sad we have to be that, I guess, honest with our kids these days at such young ages. But it's better to be honest with them and let them know what's out there than for them to be taken advantage of, because that's happened a whole lot of times over the years. But yeah, folks, watch out for your kids. Yeah, we got a terrible, cruel world out there. And if there was a societal collapse, we've seen it. We've seen it in the great tsunamis that happened in Asia. We've seen it in Haiti. We've seen children that were taken advantage of. You need to train your children up. You need to make sure they know how to take care of themselves, how to survive, and how to be precautious when it comes to people. But yeah, y'all have a good one. Was glad to have you on this Chaos Cast today.